Okay, let's go. Welcome to Wellness Wednesday and the Chronically Driven radio show and podcast. I'm your host, Sandra Sova, and once again, I'm pleased to be spending this time with you here today. Hello, whether you are joining us live here in Nanaimo on CHLY 1017, or if you're listening to the podcast or YouTube version. Welcome. I am so glad you're here. I can't wait for you to meet today's guest. We are going to be speaking with Anie Boudreau, the founder and creator of School of Reverence. As with many, Anie's work stems from a personal journey of recovery, growth, and discovery, driven by curiosity and by seeking joy. Having sustained nearly 30 concussions as a downhill mountain biker and snowboarder, Anie now lives with a brain injury and chronic pain. Through her own personal journey of pursuing intrinsic health, Anie, once the student, has become the teacher and believes that any experience that can be compassionately integrated can become a resource. I loved learning from Anie on the creation of the Embodied Wonderment Method, which is part of the Psychedelic Integration Facilitator training program at the School of Reverence. This adds a compassion-centered lens that is often missing when working with people with pain, trauma, and addiction. We are going to be right back. Get ready for a very special episode. You're listening to Chronically Driven. All right, welcome to today's show. I am super excited to introduce you to Anie. She is a certified yoga therapist, an advanced level addiction recovery coach and trainer, and certified contemplative psychology educator. Anie is a specialist in pain science, nervous system regulation, movement for trauma, psychedelic treatment for addiction, recovery, and the psychology of the mind. Another area that is driving her work and is one that her and I have in common, and that is learning to connect more deeply with the unseen energies and spirit guides who lead and support us all through these journeys. Hi, Anie. I am so pleased for the opportunity to have another conversation with you. Welcome to Chronically Driven.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to spend this time with you.
Absolutely. We're going to be touching on actually a wide range of topics. However, I really feel that at the core, the root of what we're talking about today is understanding and talking about really creating and living a bold and beautiful life. Mm-hmm. Anie, when you and I spoke the other day, there was something that you said that really landed for me, and I thought it would be a great place to start and also allow you to give our listeners the opportunity to hear a little bit about your background and your healing journey. And you talked to me about moving through a fixed mindset of how will I get better to a more open one of how will I live a good life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I often use joyful life, not because good and bad are included in joyful, So yeah, that's huge for me. I got goosebumps when you brought it up again. I found for those that are listening that, live with persistent pain, might be familiar with the hustle of trying to get better. Right. And I was definitely caught in that hustle for a long time. And it brought me a lot of gifts because I was constantly trying to, figure myself out, figure out what would help me heal from this brain injury that I have. But then one day I just recognized my exhaustion. Mm-hmm. The texture was of panting, like I was living my life panting this way. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I stopped for a moment and changed my my direction from how will I get better to how will I live a joyful life, suddenly the pain that was all of my landscape only became part of my whole landscape. And so suddenly I could see all of the things that also brought me joy, that brought me kindness, that brought me strength, that didn't, although pain was there, could really be there with, regardless.
Just as a part. And I mean, that's such a strong point, because living with chronic pain, living with a chronic condition, it really can overtake, and it can be all consuming, and you get into that sort of state. And what we are going to be talking about is sort of some of the ways to, like you just said, be able to still live and but that be a part of our life, not our entire life. And that's where the more joyful experiences come in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for me, it's this word joy, I always see in my mind with a capital J, like
Yes.
It's that joy that encompasses everything. In yoga, this is called Santosha Contentment. And they speak about contentment as supreme joy.
Yes.
And so this is when we speak about joy in this container, that's the type of joy that I speak about, where I can have joy, or wonderment is where I go to about even the most intense things happening for me, right? I can just be like, wow, okay, this is my human experience. And so, yeah.
I mean, and that's sort of the sort of thing, like when you kind of learn to do that can be like, it becomes part of our, a toolkit that we can go in and rely on. Annie, one of the things that I'd like to dive into is the business, the initiative, the mission, the wonderment that you have created with the School of Reverence. So the School of Reverence, I just want to touch on to people what that is. And so one of the most beautiful things that you have developed through this is the Embodied Wonderment Method. I think you mentioned the word wonderment just a moment ago. And the Embodied Wonderment Method is psychedelic and integration facilitator training. And it is a program that has a compassion-centered, trauma-informed issues that you address them and you integrate them and work with people in a way that help them actually utilize. It's not just teaching, it's this integration process that's so vital, and it's missing.
Whew, thanks for summing that up. Yes, exactly. It is absolutely missing. I found that most trainings were giving me like a lot of strategies of what to do, but no time to integrate any of those. So they weren't really a resource for me that I could pull out and practically use, because there was no opportunity to truly integrate them in my day-to-day life. I had to kind of figure that on my own as the years went by. So it's this word integration is key in considering, especially in this healing journey, most definitely, and in the human journey.
In the human experience. I mean, integrating all of those things. And I mean, we live in such a time now where there are things that so much change around us, and being able to take a look, a lot of these programs, so you're providing training for people that then work often with people that are working through painful situations, whether that be physical pain or moving through after an addiction process, and being able to integrate those skills so that they are not just you get a piece of paper and you go through a program, but then when the stuff hits the fan, how are you actually going to be able to tap in and use it?
Totally. Well, here's as I do the trainings, this is a kind of a message that came through for me one day, and these type of messages are the things that I kind of unpack forever and ever. And so I'll say it right now, see how it lands with you, and it's what we explore at School of Reverence, which is any experience that can be compassionately integrate can become a resource for resilience.
Oh, yes.
So I'll say it one more time. Any experience that can be compassionately integrated can become a resource for resilience. That means even my most horrific trauma, when I really have the opportunity to integrate it with compassion, can become a resource for me because I got through it. Yep. I've integrated, I got through it, and it's created strength. So if I can integrate that strength, that benefit that came through, and this isn't in that way of like the spiritual bypassing kind of thing that happens, or positive toxicity, or like, no, it's all good, and find find the gift in that. No, but really truly, like if I truly integrate it And it can become a resource. So yeah, I always want to speak to, like, I'm not trying to be like, if y'all are positive and you can see the gifts. No, there's like a process to integration, it's not like that.
And that's such an important aspect of it, because I talk a lot. People have heard me talk about how my living with a chronic illness, rheumatoid arthritis, and then going through my breast cancer journey have been two of the biggest gifts, but it's not like it was a party. And what you said there, taking these situations and looking at it through a compassionate lens, I feel that is the difference from being able to move forward and have that healing journey, as opposed to have stopped you in your tracks and be stuck in that situation. Being able to, it's not about erasing it or dumbing it down. I would never want to forget about my experiences that I've gone through. I don't want to relive them all in their intensity again, but to look back and learn from that, I think that's a key point of being able to heal.
100%. And it includes having deep reverence for the stuckness itself.
Yes.
For all of that time that you felt stuck, that had value. There was some part of your nervous system that was like, we got to stay stuck here to stay safe, And so there's so many layers to this. And so really opening up to, that I love using the word reverence, that deep reverence to all the parts that have made us come to this moment now, And so for me, a big thing is also just normalizing our experience all the time. So I don't get a hate on of like, I can't believe I was stuck there for years and years,
Oh.
Letting myself have that grief of like, yeah, I was. And then the practice of joy of, and here I am now,
Yeah.
And so just speaking to all those layers, that the stuckness is brilliant also.
And it is also, I think that's important for people to hear when they're on an earlier stage of their wellness journey, their recovery, their process, seeing and talking to people that have been through that. It's very different than when you're just starting at it. And it is a process, and it's part of the healing, going through that, being stuck and taking that pause, but you don't need to stay there. Right?
Yeah. And sometimes like also expanding the narrative that it's not all on you. Like we need community too. We got to call into community, And so as a community, it's important for us to understand nervous system education and to have a language for compassion and all these things, so that when someone's deep in their stuckness, we can keep reflecting back their sanity,
Yes. You mentioned community. And that has brought me to, that is one of the 5 pillars that are part of the programs that you offer. So is it part of the Embodied Wonderment Method, or is it a standalone? The pillars are a thing of a separate issue.
Yeah, the pillars show up in anything that has to do with School of Reverence, so including the Embodied Wonderment Method. And do you want me to speak to them?
Well, which would make sense to talk about first?
Yeah, well, I can just speak to, it's actually these 5 pillars that ended up creating all of School of Reverence, really. Yeah. And it's the moment where I was asked to consider quite a few moons back, I had a near-death experience. And I was at a meditation retreat when it happened. I won't go too much into that part, but afterwards, the main teacher there, and kind of interviewed me afterwards and said, I see you so joyful right now. Like, I know what you just went through. I know what you go through every day. You're always in intense pain, yet like, how do you do it? How are you meeting your pain this way and living your life this way, even though you're in pain? And I'm so grateful for that question, because literally it's created all of the programs that I do. And so that's when I came up with the 5 pillars. And it's funny, I wrote them down and then didn't reread it till like 2 years later. I read it and was like, wow, this is brilliant.
So that is something to me that again, I've been, just got the goosebumps all over, because I've been talking to so many other individuals that have brought forth meaningful work that they haven't sat down with pen and paper I need to create to solve ABC. It's something that they've been that's been gifted to them, that they've been guided to, that they're told that that's what they need to deliver and bring forth. And that sounds like that's what that was.
Totally. I call them now downloads.
Downloads. That's what I call them.
Yeah. I suddenly get these downloads, and I definitely have a language around spirit guides and all these kind of, especially the more you get into psychedelics, it just organically
hand in hand. Yeah.
You attune to this. And that's the whole, in School of Reverence, we call it, what integration is where science meets sacred. Like those two things come together. So I have, again, deep reverence for these downloads, and I can recognize all the times now that I know the visceral sensation of just getting that kind of message, all the times in my life where I, thankful. I feel like it doesn't give you a choice to listen, really, but all the times where I did get these messages that pulled me through in hard moments,
Yeah. So you received that during a very timely. You were asked the question, and then your answer was you wrote these down. And did you say you didn't do anything with them for quite some time?
Yeah, no, I wrote it down. I remember. And then, a couple years later, I think I was trying to find maybe blog content. I don't know. I'm like, I feel like you wrote something way back. And I picked it up. I was like, wow. And it projected me back to that moment. Yeah. And then I realized, that anything I created was going to need to have those 5 things involved. And so the 5 pillars, for those that are now like, tell us what they are. The 5 pillars, the first being number 1 is knowledge and education. How incredibly important it's been for me to learn about trauma, about the nervous system, about the nature of my mind, about my body, all those things, Knowledge is really key, and it is healing in itself. And then the second is daily practice. Like, I need to have that discipline, that gentle discipline of coming back and back and back to myself daily, like checking in, like, where am I starting from today? Where am I starting from today? So that I can be kind, so that I can make kind choices for myself, knowing that. So that looked like lots of different things throughout my life. Of course, I have a background in yoga and mindfulness practice and all those things, but now it's like punk rock aerobics as part of my daily practice, and like different kinds of movements. I definitely feel that playfulness has to be in the daily practice. And so the third pillar is nature. And I think every time I say that, someone are like,
it's a cycle.
Yeah. My teacher gave me this really great teaching, and she said, what's amazing about the elements is that we can't make stories up about them. Like, we can't hate the water itself. We can't like although we might be upset that it rained on our picnic day, we can't make stories up about nature, because nature just is. And that's really relaxing, like, it's just exactly what it is, and can drop us into the present moment. And I feel super blessed. I'm very privileged to have, my life in Nelson, BC, where there's a huge lake and trees. But I speak to people that might not have as much access to nature. You can always bring nature in, like I have lots of driftwood inside my house, or plants all over the place. And even just imagining yourself in nature will just, bring you back to yourself a little bit. Just imagine yourself in the forest or by the ocean, So that, nature is number 3. And then number 4 is community, which we talked about. And I think I said this when we talked the first time, even if that's a community of dogs, like you can't stand people right now, that's okay. But just paying attention to what you commune with, and that relationship and community. And then 4, and the 5th one is ridiculousness. Like, you gotta have a soft heart around what's happening, because this healing journey can get so damn serious, And so how can we bring play and soft-heartedness and kind of have a chuckle around what it means to be human?
Oh yeah, I mean that's helpful too, and to be able to be able to smile and to laugh at ourselves that are with our foibles and the things that we do. And also, I think that takes playfulness and ridiculousness takes away some of the need to be the perfectionist syndrome. when we can just be more playful about things and to sort of release that need to control the outcomes of everything, because especially when you're living with like chronic pain and things like that, the things like so much of us is out of our control. So I love these pillars because they provide, it's just like it's like the touchstone, the bedrock to be able to get back and to reset, recalibrate. A daily practice is something that I'm really, really a fan of. And like you said, it changes along the way. It can be different things, but it's so important to take that time. A memory came up on my Facebook feed today of some few years ago when I'm talking about self-care and how I never used to even consider it at all. I would never put taking care of myself. I never made it onto my list. And now nothing makes it onto the list until I do my self-care stuff. Like it's non-negotiable. So all of these things and putting them into place and doing that is it's like you said, we were saying, it's how you build resilience.
I was kind of picking up what you were saying, and it feels true. So before I had School of Reverence, SB School of Reverence, I used to put on these workshops called The Art of Self-Care. And and so the biggest aha for people there is that differentiating the difference between selfish and self-care, right?
Yes.
And so there's confusion around that, it feels like in society that we're in right now. So something that feels really true for me when I say things like, and I recognize that, for example, playfulness is one of the pillars and it's really important to have that there. I also recognize that playfulness is extremely vulnerable and is actually not accessible for a lot of people that have gone through trauma and are in recovery, And so how do we even get back to a place where we can invite in play without it feeling like a threat, right? Because we have to kind of let ourselves go a little bit to be playful. And so one of the main kind of a main nervous system education teaching that we speak about at School of Reverence is just recognizing the negativity bias. And so what's really helpful there is that to know that we are wired to automatically structure things that might harm us. And therefore, because, right, so that if I ate some poisonous berries and they made me sick, my brain will structure that automatically so that I don't eat them again. That makes sense. But because things that benefit us won't kill us, then the brain doesn't automatically structure that, you see. What also happens with negativity bias that can happen, it can be on overdrive. So we're often in defensive mode. And so our brain keeps scanning out for all of the things that might harm us, right? And so it can feel like everything around us is harmful. It's like our brain kind of tricking us in that way. So something that we practice at School of Reverence is called Glimmer Hunting. So I changed so that we can kind of hijack this negativity bias. So we can kind of get out of this defensive mode. So moving away from orienting myself from all the things that might harm me towards all the things that might benefit me, so that I can get more resource and come back to the things that feel like are harming me, right? And so that's what Glimmer Hunting is. It's one of my favorite practices. A glimmer is something that brings me back to a sense of safety, that brings me back to a sense of wholeness, that attunes myself with my sense of strength, so that you get a sense of what glimmer is. And so that is one of the practices, going out glimmer hunting and taking those glimmers in, so that we can be more resourced.
So what's a glimmer? What are some of the things that are a glimmer for you?
So glimmers can be so many different things. Like glimmers can literally be like a nervous system hack. Like, for example, a glimmer for me is doing little tapping on my heart. That's a glimmer, right? Like if I'm really stressed, I tap my heart and follow my breath. And that brings me back to a sense of safety. A glimmer can also be like a fuzzy sweater or a walk with your dog. But it can also sometimes be something that just really wakes you up, like somebody is just really direct and sharp with you, but that's a glimmer because you really needed to hear that, to come back towards yourself. So glimmers are very much personal to you. What glimmers me up might not be what glimmers you up. What's really great about glimmer hunting is you're taking note of what your glimmers are. So what happens is a lot of times people don't realize how many resources they actually have around them until they go on a glimmer hunt and they're like, well, damn, like just in my living room, I have all these things that bring me back to safety. So that's that integration part. You actually have to name it, take it in as something that benefits you so that you can pull it out as a resource later. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. And I think that what we tend to happen when things get a little intense for us or we're going through challenging times, that we forget that we have resources within us to draw upon. And these glimmers, it's sort of like you're helping to create that goodie bag, the thing that you can go to, your backpack, your special thing where there's a lot of items that you can pick in, and you have that on the ready. Because when we are in that sort of fight or flight, when we are worried, concerned, if we are in a state of fear, our brains don't really work for us in that bit. We're not designed to think that way. So, but the resources, they're just there. They're like, it's right there. If we would only choose to go to that and use them. And so building it as a practice is what allows us to do this. Because if we're and so again, coming back to the integration of that and teaching people how to do this, people can even just be listening to this podcast and saying, okay, well, that's nice. That makes sense. But until they actually take it and personalize it and integrate it, not just as knowledge, but as a resource, it can help to replenish. It can help to support. And then, I mean, as with like when you find a really cool recipe or the best pair of shoes or whatever, you want to share it out. So you start learning this stuff, and then you invite others to try and to look and explore this kind of stuff too. And it's
absolutely. Yes. There's a lot of pieces in what you said that just feel like, exactly on point. And the beauty of integrating a glimmer is that it only takes, brain science says, 60 seconds. It's literally just taking that one moment. And when you do, you're actually physically creating a structure. So you get to actually physically walk around with that glimmer after, but you need to take that 60 seconds. And also what you said about like when we're in high stress, it's really hard to remember a glimmer. So that's why practicing writing them down, really integrating them is important so that they become easier to access when we're in states of deep high stress or a trauma loop kicks in. What's also really amazing is if you get your list of glimmers and you really get to know them, you get to share them with your glimmery friends, the friends that allow you. And so a lot of times, I have the symptoms of PTSD, and if I go into one of my trances, I have a friend that I can call, and she knows all of my glimmers. She knows exactly how to help me breathe. She knows certain things to say. She knows how to orient me. And so that is so helpful because an episode that could last hours usually lasts like 5 minutes.
That almost made me tearful because that landed so hard. That's that community. And when we can know other people know what our glimmers are and we know what theirs are, you can really just get right to the chase and help. Because so much of the way to help, it has to come from with us. People can't make us feel better. We need to find that and to be reminded of those things by a friend, a colleague, a partner. I'm writing my glimmer list is getting created and it's getting passed on.
Right? I have a friend that even has it taped inside of her cupboard, and she opens up and she remembers, right? just like to normalize that it is very normal to not remember your glimmers when you're, so what can you do to remember them, right? Because your nervous system just wants to get past the next 5 minutes. So it's going to grab the most slippery slope thing that you've had. So that's where addiction comes in, right? Like I'm super high stress, this one substance that's helped me. So you're really training your mind to know that there are other glimmers that can bring you that same benefit without the harm, you know?
That's really, really important, because people that do have substance use issues, that can be, that's the go-to, that's the path of least resistance. That's where you think is where to receive comfort and release. And but having other resources to be able to do that, it's just like, it's so cool. And whether or not you are someone that is living with chronic pain, or you've never had any issues with addictions or substance abuse, I can tell you right now, I don't think there's a person on the planet that is not being bombarded with the stressfulness of things in our communities and everything like that. The stress and all of that, whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to put labels and names, but we all feel it. And so being able to, as a collective, as a community, if we can help start just by sharing this stuff out, healing each other one breath, one drop, one glimmer at a time. I mean, it's this kind of stuff that's simple, and yet so powerful.
It's forgotten a little. It's, you know, because we're all in our defensive mode right now. But here's what I know is true. Okay, like the research has shown that trauma hits us on a physiologically, right? It changes the way we see, we smell, we hear, we feel. What I also know is true is that compassion does the same thing. Compassion changes my physiology. All the listeners and you can just consider just a recent time or a very past time where someone really listened to you and heard you and saw you, and bring that moment into your body right now. And I do that right away, my whole being shifts, right? It changes our physiology. So that's the training at School of Reverence. How can we meet each other heart to heart and normalize our experience as human beings? And so, you know, our greatest enemy, I like to say at School of Reverence, is stigma, you know, all of these beliefs that are keeping us from, that are dehumanizing and that are keeping us from meeting in this compassionate way, you know?
That compassion, seeing things from a compassionate lens, firstly for ourselves, and then for others that we meet. I know School of Reverence is for a lot of practitioners that already have practices themselves. They go to just to develop and enhance their skills. We've all very common term that we're hearing around lately is trauma informed, and that's very very important. What about compassion informed? And to be able to, like you say, meet individuals from that heart-centered space, both as a practitioner, I think that will make a bit of a change, whether you're someone that's, you know, a massage therapist, acupuncture, counselor, yoga teachers, people that work with clients in any sort of a way. There's so many skills and knowledge that you have, whatever your specialized practice is, but to bring on these layers, to get some training, some practice, some understanding of how this all works in. And again, like how it works with our brain science, with the chemistry, it's so much more than just book knowledge is what I'm picking up here.
Yeah. And, you know, I was teaching this stuff to the college, the massage school here. And what feels true is what keeps us from showing up, whether it's practitioners or friends or family, in this way, heart to heart, with this kind of skillful intimacy, I like to call it, is discomfort. If we're working with anything at School of Reverence, is like, how do we meet discomfort and have reverence for it so that we can stay present with it?
This feels important, because normally we're trying to avoid discomfort. We're trying to avoid it. We may be getting into some issues by trying to numb or block or mute feelings physical or emotional. So dive into that one a little bit.
Well, that explains addiction, right? That's why none of us are, we all are addicted to something, meaning there's something in our life that we either need to push away or numb out right now. Right? And then we'll gravitate towards that and kind of be in an addiction loop around it. And so it is very skillful means to cultivate these practices where we become in absolute wonderment around our discomfort and really get to know it on a visceral level, as well as on, beyond our body level also, and so to dive into it is like, do you have like 3 years? Like my program is like we're spending 2 years with discomfort. Welcome. There are so many ways, but a lot of it, the most simple thing is to start creating pause, just so you recognize you're uncomfortable right there. I have a particular mantra that says that I repeat to myself: pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to my discomfort. I pledge allegiance to my. So I have made a commitment to have deep reverence, to approach discomfort with total awe and wonderment, to recognize sensations in my body when it arises, so I can name it that, like, oh, this is discomfort. Here are all of the resources that I have around me to keep me present, even though I'm uncomfortable, so that I can stay present to this person in front of me, I know, like, I can't give you these very specific things, but I hope that kind of.
No, I mean, because I mean, especially if you're living with chronic pain, it's kind of it's a relationship. You should treat it as a relationship. If you live with a chronic condition, if your goal is always trying to eliminate and alleviate your pain, oof, girl, you're in a battle, because.
And you won't, and well, more than that, you won't integrate. So. The integration method at School of Reverence is called the 4 invitations of integration. And so to integrate, you need to meet whatever's calling your attention, whatever's causing discomfort within you, and meet it with some kindness, compassion, so that it can be liberated. So it's a huge, there is no integration without meeting discomfort. I'm putting that down right now. It's like a message that's coming through. Like, chew on that, decide how it lands with you. But it feels true to me in this very moment that there will not be integration if I also cannot meet discomfort without pushing, if I go straight to pushing it away or pretending it's, then I'm not actually going to integrate my experience.
And that does make sense. And the thing with that is that may be not a popular view. It might sound difficult, but that's okay. Taking I mean, it's just this journey, and as we grow and evolve and call in support from everywhere that is available to us, it's something that just keeps coming in. And we're going back to the five pillars and talking about the fifth one being ridiculousness and playfulness. That is something that I have only really in the past year allowed myself to do. I've always been a very, serious business, all this, and just taking myself and the world way too seriously. Now, the playfulness allows me to be more forgiving of myself and others and the world, and doing all of that, all of these things, they're available to us.
Yeah, because within the landscape of playfulness is just the energy of awe and wonder. And when wonderment is present, judgment cannot really survive,
Yes.
And so we just get to be in this full state of wonderment with ourselves, and that's where the good shit is.
That's what, exactly. I mean, and it's just like the wonderment and the curiosity and the, finding, we're all, I think, as humans, as we travel along this journey, really to have your eyes open and recognize how much we evolve and change, and to move with that, embrace that, have that wonderment oh, what does this mean? What might be next? All of that. And just to have that as a, take yourself on as this amazing curiosity project that you're the CEO of. And, and instead of what is easy to get is to into that stuck situation for wherever you are. But
yeah, curiosity is the main tool in School of Reverence, in the Embodied Wonderment Method. And I often say that curiosity is the pathway back to compassion. And also recognize that, again, if you've been living with, intense trauma and stress responses, it can be hard to get back to your curiosity around something. Some people that are currently practitioners might recognize what I mean. Like to get someone to get curious about their situation is like a no-go. So that's where like nervous system education is so awesome, so that we can just get their bodies settled enough so that they can start even considering like getting curious about something. And so that's part of the 4 invitations of integration. The first invitation is just to get still, and it takes some work to do that, right? So first we have to get still so we can notice what's even there. And so, yeah, that's what I've loved about this new wave of like a lot of language around the nervous system and how the brain works and all that, because that type of knowledge is actually quite pacifying for someone, like to receive that, like, oh, I'm not a total asshole. This is just my nervous system doing its thing. And then it can pacify someone enough so they can just start noticing and then get to curiosity, But curiosity is my jam. Like that's the ticket right there.
And that's empowering. I mean, with the first pillar being knowledge, having that curiosity, and then seeking and finding the knowledge, and you put it into your daily practice, and you add nature and your community and your playfulness, and I'm seeing like we're making like this recipe and all these different ingredients, and it's going to be this amazing feast. And
absolutely. And yeah, developing this language around all that. One of my favorite words, and a lot of my students say it was a great gift, is using the word capacity for myself. Like instead of like, I don't have enough like energy today, or like a not enoughness of something. There's quite an empowerment of being like, this is my capacity today. And for that, I do need to check in. I need to get still and be like, what is my capacity today? And I'm going to speak from that today. That is not a problem, and this is my capacity. So all of this and these pillars and invitations is really you cultivating agency around your capacity, right? And that's not a problem. That's where you are today in this.
I like that. And it's also very, very clear that capacity is much different than ability. It's not that you're not able to, you just don't have the capacity for it at this time. And I think that allows that grace and that understanding. And it's, yes, language and words are so, they're really powerful. And learning new ones, like name it for something that has more meaning. I think that's great. And all of this stuff, I mean, you have the experience of knowing the science and everything with the addiction recovery, the training for the nervous system regulation and for trauma recovery. And that's where the more that we're learning about this, the more that we're understanding and relating and integrating these experiences, that's where a lot of some of the psychedelic modalities can come into play.
Psychedelics are amazing at kicking someone right back to curiosity if they don't have access to it anymore, right? It's like if whatever you've been going through has separated you from your wholeness so much, it's so hard to get back. Psychedelic has the capacity to like, bam, allow you to see your whole self again. Just even if it's just for that amount of time, at least you trust that it's possible to feel yourself again. And also the psychedelic experience is like a whole landscape of curiosity. Like you're just in this total state of wonder, And so, I do absolutely, definitely like being psychedelic friendly in everything that I teach, because I think I've posted before, having a basic understanding of how psychedelics can help is a very kind act in the era that we're in, because it save life after life after life, especially with, hardships around heroin use
Mm-hmm.
and trying to overcome that. And the reality of the opiate crisis right now, psychedelics are really coming in and literally saving lives. Not for everyone. I don't mean to make it this like it's going to save everyone thing, but and for those that it works, oh my gosh, mind blowing how someone can come back to themselves in a short amount of time. Even
And
after
that sort of stuff is being not only studied and talked about, but it's being recognized as having this amazing ability to transform people's lives. And just as much as cannabis use for years and years was just, that's just for stoners and potheads. And I'm like, excuse me, chronic pain, the way that it works with our brain and our systems. And now it's actually we're able to talk about that, and the stigma is not the same as it once was. So that's hopefully the direction that we're going to continue to move with psychedelics.
Yeah, even there though, like, because it was stigmatized for so long, and that, my friend who lives in California, and it's been legal there for, quite I don't know, is it 3 years now, or the time went, I have gaps, but I'm like, how long's it been? Anyway, she has chronic pain and been using it. And she said, even to this day, like, although it's legal and there's more, I still like viscerally feel the shame when I use it. So it takes a while,
Mm-hmm.
Has been around for that long, and so that's why it's important to keep advocating for it and creating a proper narrative around it of how it
Plant medicine, baby, I tell you.
Medicine, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And it's helped me, like, that's the first thing that was helpful for me was cannabis, as far as my with daily migraines. And then psilocybin has been very, very helpful, and there's a lot of dialogue around microdosing psilocybin. And of course the more macro dose journeys that I really love seeing the conversation of doing that skillfully, though, like with deep integration afterwards. And so it's a very exciting time for sure. And at the same time, because it is getting so popular and so much traction, it's very important to have deep reverence for it too, and to make sure it's not being misused, so that
I agree. Yeah,
anything misused can cause harm, so
no, but these the fact that
I said integration is key. That's
integration is key. I mean, that's been the common theme. And I think that it's when you talk about it and when we're having this conversation, it just makes so much sense. And yet it's like, well, why has this been missing? And, it just, in so many areas for helping people to just, find their way to live their best life, look for those glimmers and bring back more joy. And yet it's not a state of constant. Again, we are not the toxic positivity poster girls here. We are not. But we are positive that there are so many good things and resources that are available for us to be able to build that resilience that we can then draw upon as and when we need it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's that merging of science and sacred. Like, there's all this information about what are good resources, and then we need to bring in, the compassion, like that, the magic of compassion to really let it land within us and really truly have it become a resource, right? So, yeah. And I feel like when you were saying why integration, although we know it's important, why hasn't it been? And truly it comes back down to that, because we need to include compassion training. We need to include training around discomfort, because if we're coming in as saviors with a bunch of strategies, we're not going to integrate anything properly. That's not how it works. As you said, it's the person healing themselves, but it's us as the practitioners reflecting back their sanity,
Yes,
and so I'm going to create this container and offer these things and hold a place where you can truly integrate this with kindness, with care, and so that takes a lot more training. That takes endurance. It's not just a 6-week program and then you're done. Like, it takes, Mhm.
Yeah. Wow, I've loved this conversation. I think it's been really, really cool to be able to, sort of. We haven't done like a deep dive. We're scratching the surface on so many of these things, but so much of this I know not only resonates with me, but to my audience as well. So I'm so appreciative of you taking the time. Annie, is there anything else that you would like to touch on? Is there anything else that you would like to share?
Well, I thought we could just integrate this little talk together really quickly, so that maybe this could be a glimmer. What parts of our conversation could be glimmers for us and for others. And so to do that is just take a few breaths within yourself and just take a moment to notice how you are now that we've had this conversation, or for the listeners that they've heard this conversation, and notice how it might have benefited you. And my practice is to offer a gift word. So, I landed in you, you landed in me. And so we can offer back a word that represents how we landed in each other. So my gift word to you would be, it's coming up. It's joy with a capital J, like truly, absolutely what I'm feeling right now.
And my word for you is appreciation.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, where can people follow you, find out more about the School of Reverence or anything else? Where can we find you?
Well, schoolofreverence.com is where you can find me. And that's where you can get information about the Embodied Wonderment Method training that's coming up. So there's a new cycle starting in 2022. And the module 1 is called Worthy. So just take that in, that word worthy, and something you'd want to explore. It's a beautiful program. So you can find all that there, and you can sign up for the newsletter just to get info on when the next program is going to start.
Perfect. Thank you. And I will put those links into the show notes as well. Thanks again for all of this juicy, wonderful information. It has been a pleasure. And I hope that those listening will be curious about what they've heard.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that wraps up today's show. Thanks so much to my guest, Anie Boudreau from the School of Reverence, for sharing her kindness and wisdom and playfulness with us today. I hope you enjoyed today's program. If you would like to listen to any previous episodes, please find them over on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts by simply searching for Chronically Driven. And if you like what you hear, go on, give it a like as well, as that will also help others find these episodes. I will be back in a couple of weeks with another edition. And until then, take care, everyone. I am wishing you wellness.